Witness the fear frenzy on the left over Elon Musk buying Twitter. Jonathan Turley writes in his latest opinion piece that Musk's original goal to restore free speech and democracy is, quote, a nightmare for the left. Jonathan Turley joins me now. He is a George Washington University professor of law, a Fox contributor. Jonathan, so good to see you. What do you make of this? You write about President Obama, what he said, that he's pretty close to a First Amendment absolutist. But it's very telling, as you write, that liberals use the First Amendment, which certainly, rather than saying free speech absolutist, which Elon Musk is, because the First Amendment allows for the restriction of speech by private businesses. It was very telling that you wrote that.
That's right. I mean, it's very telling that he chose to call himself a First Amendment absolutist, not a free speech absolutist. There is a difference. And this is part of a long-standing effort by people in favor of censorship to say, well, this satisfies the First Amendment. That's not the question. The First Amendment is relatively narrow. It deals with government interference with free speech. But you'll see the difference in Obama's speech. He says, you know, I'm against censorship, but except if it's a lie, disinformation, quackery, or basically anything I disagree with. I mean, that was the thrust of his comments. And that's the reason the Musk takeover of Twitter has caused these groups and individuals to go absolutely apoplectic. You know, because suddenly one major company is going to recommit and restore free speech values. And that's a problem. That is, when all the social media companies were unified, when they were all censoring people uniformly, there was no alternative. And the greatest fear that they have is that Musk might be right, that Twitter might actually grow and become more profitable because the board has done real serious damage to their product. They're a communications company selling censorship. It's like being an automotive company against cars. It's not going to do that well until you start to tell people that you're going to respect their free speech rights.
Because I've talked about for some time, particularly with the shutdown of Parler, not just the censorship by Twitter of the New York Post accurate, true story about Hunter Biden's laptop right before the election. But I called Amazon, Apple, Google, and Facebook the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And that these tech monopolies, and they know more about people than the government does, they're all powerful and unchecked, but then locking arms and working in cahoots with big corporate media, academia, no offense, and government. That they have worked together to censor speech and censor expression and even behavior. So to your point, right, if Twitter succeeds in this, then what it seems to be is, and you write about Hillary Clinton calling on the European Union to pass this massive censorship effort called the Digital Services Act. This is where the left is going to try and go, is to get the government to make sure that a Twitter can't allow for free speech, to shut it down based on law.
That's right. The Digital Services Act is the newest pitch. That is, you know, remember that these politicians were using these companies as a surrogate for censorship because they couldn't do it directly. Now a major company is breaking free. And so what's the first, you know, change after the Musk offer? Hillary Clinton saying to the Europeans, quick, time's running out, pass the DSA. And it's the same strategy to circumvent the First Amendment. They're going to use surrogate other foreign countries to try to achieve the same end. And it's really astonishing to see American leaders calling on Europeans to impose censorship because they can't do it directly. And the Europeans have a long history of speech controls and censorship. Germany, France, England really have horrendous records in criminalizing speech. So they're hoping that they can use the EU to force Twitter, against the wishes of its owner, against shareholders, against users, to continue to censor. And that's one of the reasons EU today warned Musk that no matter how committed you are to free speech, we're not.
It's chilling, Jonathan Turley, and not what this country is founded upon.
I think that's right. And people have got to call on Congress. This is where Congress can play a role. That is, Congress has got to come in and tell the EU that we're going to fight for Twitter. That is, Twitter's trying to restore free speech. You're trying to use this end around that Hillary Clinton was describing to force censorship. And we take this as a threat to our national interests. That is, we believe in free speech. And this is, we're going to take steps to try to protect our companies from this type of European intrusion. And it'll take something like that for us to say, what defines us? Is it what Hillary Clinton is talking about? Or is it free speech, the thing that allows us to speak with each other, to let good speech overcome bad speech? And one of the things I suggested today in the Hill is that Musk can take an easy road to restoring free speech. What he should do is call their bluff and say, yeah, the First Amendment doesn't require, is not applied to corporations, but I can apply it. I can actually tell my company we're going to live by those same First Amendment principles that apply to open forums. And he could make that announcement to get rid of this division, to say that we are going to live like we're the government, not as government speech, but in terms of allowing people to speak freely in open public forums. That's a very simple way to restore free speech to Twitter.
Jonathan Turley, thank you so much for being here.